This is Deep Dive Otaku, and welcome to the first part of my coverage of the gigantic Internet Iceberg. As the tradition goes with first parts of an iceberg chart video, I gotta explain what an iceberg is. So, an iceberg chart is a collection of information listed in individual entries and placed into different tiers to represent how surface level / well-known or how deep / lesser-known information is. Sometimes this means less disturbing entries are high up, and then it gets more disturbing as it goes deeper and deeper. And sometimes this also entails more and more joke entries the further you go down, in which it's just made up for fun. This chart is monstrously large, and has 26 tiers and almost 10,000 entries. That's right, almost 10,000 entries. This iceberg chart was made by Potted Plant in Disastrous. It took them 4 years to make. Potted Plant is a user you may recognize from the other extremely large chart he made called the Massive YouTube Iceberg, which had between 1 and 2,000 entries. Potted Plant himself has a YouTube channel that I'll link in the description, along with the video he and Disastrous used to announce its completion, and I'll also link the Reddit post Potted Plant made to show this behemoth off. Now, the Reddit post doesn't have the full resolution image of the iceberg, so I'll link a full resolution version of the image in the description as well. There's also another version that's in a Google Docs, so it's easier to search up each entry. I'll put that in the description as well. And finally, there's also a Google Drive link that has all the assets that were used to make the actual image itself. Again, that's going in the description. Now, the other creator of this iceberg is Disastrous. Now, when Potted Plant linked their account on the Reddit post, it linked to Disastrous's Reddit account, but the problem is that one was actually deleted. However, Disastrous does have a YouTube account, which I'll link in the description. Disastrous has made other icebergs in the past too, like this one here, or this one, at least I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but hey, they give credit to Disastrous. I'll post it here too. There's also SB and Seal, who was credited with making the website icons and also suggested some of the entries, so I'll link their Twitter in the description as well. I myself have an X/Twitter account I just made and a Reddit account I just made, and links are in the description. Now, I do want to note something. I will not be censoring anything in this series unless I absolutely have to, or else YouTube will take the video down. For example, I won't be saying unalived, and I would just say suicide. If a video gets age restricted, then it will stay age restricted. As long as it's not removed by YouTube or blocked in my home country, it's staying up. Now, before we continue, I did just want to shout out a few creators that inspired me to start making this video myself. The first one will be Swegwin for his work on covering the entirety of the Massive YouTube Iceberg, which is insane, by the way. So if you're interested in someone covering the Massive YouTube Iceberg, I would strongly recommend you check out the link I have in the description of his channel, as his work on that was a huge inspiration for me to start work on this. If he can go through that hell for years, I'm gonna try too. I also want to shout out Parallel Pipes, as his coverage of various icebergs is some of the highest quality on the internet. It's really some of the best iceberg content out there. I'm going to link his channel in the description as well. I also want to give a shout out to Wendigoon for his coverage of the disturbing movie Iceberg, as that is what got me to even start watching iceberg videos on YouTube instead of just looking at the charts themselves. So that's what got me into watching those videos in the first place, so I want to shout out him. He also did the conspiracy theory iceberg, which is also incredibly long, so I'll link both of those in the description as well. Now I'm going to start discussing stuff that's on the image itself. But first, let's start with that little blob of text that's on the right. You see it? That's what we're going to be talking about first, and well, we're going to be here a while anyway, so why not read it? It reads, "This iceberg chart mainly covers various kinds of interesting subjects on the internet, such as iconic media and people, weird media, unique media, interesting people, interesting subcultures, and much more. Every entry on this iceberg chart exists to some degree, so there will be urban legends and hoaxes. This iceberg chart mainly places the entries in tiers based on their obscurity in the English-speaking internet, although darker subjects may be biased for lower tiers. It's just more fun that way. Also, if you're dumb, note that this does not apply to the order of individual entries. Entries that are not included are extreme entries such as footage of child pornography / child abuse, footage of zoophilic pornography / animal abuse, their creators, or anything containing recipes for illegal materials like bombs or meth to keep this iceberg safe under r/iceberg charts rules. The cutoff date is March 2026, so no entries that originated after Q1 2026 will be included, and the status of any entries listed may change after their original status in Q1 2026. To qualify in a tier, you must be able to describe at least 40% of the entries from it. So no, you aren't instantly God just because you've heard of like one entry from there. Now, if you're following along in the Reddit image instead of the full resolution image, you might notice a little blurb that's in parentheses that isn't in the full resolution image. I'll read this as well. It says, also, this is a JPEG version of the iceberg chart made so it can be posted on Reddit. It is preferred that you use the full quality version of the iceberg in the Google Drive linked in the Reddit post if you can. And like I said before, that's also in the description of this video. Now, one thing you might notice is that individual entries are color-coded, and some will even have little letters on the top right that are also color-coded. Those are all described in the legend at the top. This isn't really relevant for you guys. I don't want to bore you by reading the whole legend. I'll only point it out when it becomes relevant. It's more of a useful tool for research that I greatly appreciate. There is another major difference I want to describe between versions, and that being the image versions and the Google Doc version. Again, all of those are in the description. Now, the images, I'll show you on screen right now, in the image versions, the tiers separate the entries based on what website they're in. The Google Doc doesn't. So there is a big difference there, but on the flip side, the Google Doc version has a section at the bottom with right under all the entries that has explanations, context, and links for a lot of the more difficult to research entries. But for this series, I'm going to show the image version, but hey, if there's research in there, I'm going to use it. But the Google Doc doesn't really look all that great, so I'll just use the images for you guys. Now, each tier of the iceberg also is given a title with a description and a picture. I'll read the title and description when we get to the tier, but the image I'm going to hold off until we get to an entry that actually explains what that image is, because I'd just be having to repeat myself. Now, the video you're watching introduces the iceberg like I just did and covers a portion of tier 1. Each video will be a portion of one single tier, and I hope to get these videos between 1 and 2 hours, just to keep it from being a slog. I could do a 5-hour video, but that would be very boring. The 1 to 2 hours isn't a hard and fast rule. Like, if a video finishes a tier and it's less than an hour, I'll leave it. I don't want to cover multiple tiers in one video. Now, as for the background music that I'll be using throughout this entire series, I'll put a little blurb up of who made the song and what the song's title is right on the video whenever a new song comes up. And in the description, I'll have a paste bin with all of the links and credits to all of those, so you won't have to ask, what the song is when in the comments section. I'm also going to have a section in the description where I'll say what mic and recording software and editing software I use as well, just in case anybody's curious. Now, if after finishing this video there's anything you think I could do to improve, please let me know. Any constructive feedback, positive or negative, would be welcome. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified when the next part comes out. There's going to be a lot of parts, so you're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed and hit the bell button. Your support will be most appreciated. This is a passion project for me first and foremost, but if other people enjoy it, hey, that'll make it worth it even more. Oh, and please don't worry, no other video in this series is going to have an intro anywhere close to this long. I just wanted to get all the housekeeping out of the way now so that intros in the future will be very quick. Now, having said all that, let's get on with this thing. So tier 1 is the normie tier, and the description reads, "Welcome to the World Wide Web. Here resides the most well-known internet knowledge. Even your grandma would know most of these." There is one thing I want to note about this tier. When I first started writing this script, I kept entries extremely short, but as I went on, I decided to include more details that I found interesting and to flesh it out, and the entries became decently long. You'll notice this shift as it goes on after a few entries. I personally prefer the more detailed ones, but I left the shorter ones I did in the beginning as is, just in case anybody hates the more detailed ones and shouts at me to go back to the shorter ones. But before you click off, note that if you don't like the short ones, don't worry, it gets to normal length very soon. Now for the very first entry in this gigantic internet iceberg is Google. You know what Google is, I know what Google is, but just to be thorough, even for obvious entries like these, I'll at least say something for them. Google LLC, formerly known as Google Inc., is a subsidiary of Alphabet Inc. They were founded in 1998 and have become a gigantic company and brand. They have a metric ton of services such as their search engine, maps, YouTube, Gmail, etc., which I'll talk about in later entries. And there's a ton of failed ventures that I'll also talk about a couple of those later on. If you want to know more about Google, just Google them. You see the joke there? Anyway, moving on.
It's controlled by something greater. Memes. The DNA of the soul. They shape our world. They are the culture. They are everything we pass on. Expose someone to anger long enough, they will learn to hate.
While the concept of memes was originally coined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, was used to explain the spread of ideas and cultural phenomenon, you most know it for internet memes. The term internet meme was coined by Mike Godwin in 1993 to talk about how memes spread in online communities. Internet memes, or just memes nowadays, is invaded common vernacular in such a way to which even your average Joe knows what a meme is. Even if everybody has a different idea of which ones are funny and for how long, everybody seems to know what a meme is. There will be enough memes described in this iceberg that I find this to be enough of a description of it for now. Social media. How do I even describe what social media is without just quoting Wikipedia word for word? Here, I'll just do that. Social media are new media technologies that facilitate the creation, sharing, and aggregation of content such as ideas, interests, and other forms of expression, like memes, amongst virtual communities and networks. Popular social media platforms with over 100 million registered users include Twitter, Facebook, WeChat, ShareChat, Instagram, Pinterest, Qzone, Weibo, VK, Tumblr, Baidu Taiba, Threads, and LinkedIn. And like this article says, some people consider YouTube to be one, but I never really thought of YouTube as a social media, but who knows? I'll leave that up to you. Like with memes, I'll be talking about social media sites individually enough to where further discussion isn't really all that necessary until we get to them. YouTube plus YouTube Kids. YouTube is literally the site that you're watching this on, or if you're not, someone re-uploaded it somewhere else, or you downloaded it and are watching it locally, but it was originally on YouTube. Now, YouTube is a video sharing platform that allows live streams, renting movies, professional music uploads, etc. on top of the normal video uploads. It was founded in 2005 by a former couple of employees from PayPal. Then in 2006, it was bought by Google and has been owned by them since. It has also stolen many years of my life. Potentially the most addictive website out there. YouTube's logo is the image representing Tier 1 of this iceberg, although I'm pretty confident unless you're blind you would know that. As for YouTube Kids, it was founded in 2015 as an app for iOS and Android and eventually had a web-based version in 2019. Now this will be explained a little bit later, but I'll at least mention it now. It's explicitly meant for users under the age of 13 since the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998, or COPPA, had stricter rules on privacy for children under 13. Further, YouTube Kids allows for no comments and some other regular features to accommodate kids. Honestly, I imagine half of the audience of this are kids on their parents' phone/tablets just playing all of these on autoplay. When you upload a video on YouTube, you have to click an option as to whether it's made for children or not, and sometimes YouTube will automatically detect this and just make your video this, even if you don't want to. YouTube Kids has a lot I could say about it, as with YouTube in general, but I'll leave it at here for now, as later entries will talk about plenty of things about YouTube and YouTube Kids. Wikipedia. There's a lot one could say about Wikipedia. It's many students and YouTubers' first and last place to do research on things. And Wikipedia is easily one of the most important websites ever, because you can get a wide variety of information quickly and easily, written and directed by laymen from various resources. It's good for very general information and to kill time, and it's also a good springboard, because what you could do, the trick a lot of people would recommend is that you read it, but then you go into the sources that they reference and go to those, and to reference those when you're writing a paper. But one thing I would say is that if there's like a really controversial topic on Wikipedia, or one of them that, just doesn't feel right, I'd just maybe go to other resources as well, get a bigger picture, make sure, it wasn't just vandalized by somebody who wanted to edit it, or maybe Wikipedia is biased on something. In any case, it's one of those default websites everybody knows about. It's a great resource, and just the world would be way worse off without it. But that should be it. I don't really need to go into much more about this. Let's move on. Deep web/dark web. The subject of many creepypastas and other such media, to an extent to where I bet the average person even knows these terms, or at least has heard of them. The website you are currently on and all the other ones are a part of the World Wide Web, hence the www at the beginning of almost every link, even if it is hidden. Sometimes this is called the surface web. These sites are easily searched by just Googling, or however else you normally find websites with your browser. The deep web, however, has websites not able to be searched on places like Google. You would need the URL or an IP address. Now, the dark web is a subset of the deep web. The dark web are deep websites, but are referring to a specific kind of deep web site. Typically, you would use a .onion link, but not always, which can be accessed from a certain browser called Tor. These are the sites that people are typically thinking about when they're thinking about deep web or dark web, which relates to the next entry on here. But anyway, some of these dark websites are literally just forums or other normal places, just with some extra privacy, and you have to use a .onion link and Tor to get to. This is not what many people think of when they think of the dark web. They're thinking of sites where many illegal things go on there, like sharing CP, drugs, weapons, etc. When people are thinking about the dark web, they're often talking about these places, and again, a subset of the deep web. Anything disturbing on the internet equals deep web, in quotations. Now this pairs pretty nicely with the last one. I alluded to this earlier, but many people use the terms deep web and dark web interchangeably, even though that's not really accurate, as I explained. Further, the dark web has become so synonymous with the disturbing stuff on the web that it makes people have two major misconceptions. The first one is that all dark websites are acting illegally. This is not true. Some are just regular ass forums, for example. And number two, anything disturbing must have come from the dark web. This is also not true. There's going to be an example later on about a cannibal forum where a guy literally got killed and eaten from a website that was on the clear net, the surface web, not dark web. But, saying everything disturbing is the dark web adds mystique and intrigue to so many urban legends and creepypastas, so this myth still persists. Twitter/X. This website, originally called Twitter, but spelled TWTTR, in early 2006, and then Twitter fully spelled out with the I and the E intact, from 2006 to 2023, and now it's called X. But people use both names interchangeably. Sometimes it's X, sometimes it's Twitter, sometimes it's X, formerly known as Twitter, whatever. You use X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to say Twitter. You use Twitter to send a general message out to the public that is short. It's called a tweet. You can also like someone else's. You can retweet, which is just taking someone's tweet and putting it on your page. You can reply to a tweet. You can quote retweet, which is basically like a retweet, but you're also going to say something in response to it. These days, tweets can be much longer than they used to be, and there are these things called Twitter Spaces, which are basically audio-only live streams that people can join, and there's even monetization now. This is also the site that popularized the use of hashtags in general vernacular, and there's going to be an entry about hashtags later. And they're used to talk about a specific topic or trend. This site is arguably the most important social media site, since practically all major politicians, creators, artists, etc. use this site as a primary communication tool to an audience. I have an account myself now, but I used to have an older one that was private that I only used, to like art, or if someone posts a link to Twitter, I can't actually view most of it unless I had an account, but I had that private. I made a new account just for this series, or just for my channel now for this series, so I guess I have 2 Twitter accounts now. But the other one isn't called this, so you're not going to find it. Don't even try. But yeah, Twitter's a very useful resource, even if everybody hates it. Everybody still uses it. There's going to be a few more entries, later on about this type of stuff. I'll just leave it at that. Netflix. Originally a DVD by mail service I actually used a long time ago, it is now the most well-known streaming platform and is the first one of its kind on this iceberg. Man, I remember when Netflix first started, there was a time when there was practically no other streaming platforms anybody ever heard of, and because of this, Netflix had basically everything you could ever want all in one subscription, and they had a pretty generous free trial too, mind you. But then when other companies, made their own streaming service and yanked their licensed content off or bought the rights from the holders away from Netflix, ever since that happened, Netflix doesn't have the same value. I stopped using Netflix over a decade ago because they have less things I like now than they did a decade plus ago. Partially to combat other people like me, Netflix started making their own original content and even some games. I know a lot of people like some of that original content. I know some of them are stinkers, some of them are really good. I never really watched them, but I know a lot of people do, so I'm mentioning that here. To this day, they are the most well-known streaming service, but that should be good. Let's go to the next entry. Owned by the game company Valve, Steam is a platform that sells games and acts as a platform for you to access your games. This is where most people play games on PC, and is filled with so many quality of life features that it makes it easily the best platform for it, even if others exist. And honestly, if I'm gonna be real here for a moment, most people aren't using those other platforms because they like it. It's because those games aren't on Steam. That, or there might be one niche thing that Steam doesn't have. But typically, it's because they're forced to play the games on a different platform. Steam is just that good, where people would love to be on it instead. For example, it is a pretty generous refund policy where you can get a refund, no questions asked, if you have less than 2 hours of playtime on it, and it was within 14 days of purchase. Now, that's pretty generous compared to console companies for online games, which usually give you a bupkis. There's also family sharing, which, if there's someone else in your family with a game, and they have a Steam account, you can actually play their game as long as they're not playing it right then. You could actually play your brother's game. There's many options to doing things with friends, interacting with other game communities, etc. I honestly can't even imagine a competitor seriously taking any real market share from them at this stage. They're that embedded. Alright, cancel culture is a term that no matter how I describe it, will piss off a decent chunk of my viewers, and since this is a very highly politicized term, some say it doesn't exist at all, others will say it's everywhere. So you see how I may have a bit of difficulty presenting this objectively. I'll say I've noticed 2 main ways that people refer to this phenomenon. And going forward, when we come across controversial entries, and there's gonna be more controversial entries that are politicized just like this, anytime whether there's one that people will bicker about, again, usually political or social issues, but not always, I'll present both sides in the most generous possible way I can to them. When I do this, I am not claiming to be supporting said side, nor do I claim to be in the middle. I'm simply trying to present each side in the least biased manner possible and explain their side in a way that they would themselves. Alright, so the first side of cancel culture. Alright, so the way that one side refers to cancel culture is like this. Let me give a good example of how they would explain it. Let's say there's somebody popular online or, elsewhere and, just known by people. Let's say that person doesn't like said popular person. Then they'll go scour their Twitter profile or some other kind of social media and look for something that is offensive to this person looking for it now, but wasn't offensive back when the post was made many years ago. And then this person will spread it to make that person not get support anymore. The said person will often get backlash from certain people, and it may even lead to like companies or other places, even like the government, from sponsoring them or firing them or demonetizing them on YouTube or banning them on whatever platform. Or if you're in certain countries, maybe that don't have free speech, you might even, get arrested, whatever. So for those who hold this view of cancel culture, they say it's a purity test, and if you fail said purity test, you will be canceled, and it is everywhere. That is one view. Now here is the second view. The second view is that people who use the term cancel culture are actually using it as a shield to mask bad behavior. That, if we went back to said example, that person shouldn't have said those things to begin with. They are being punished for their actions. They are just using the term cancel culture to get out of the negative attention. Those on this side say cancel culture doesn't exist, or if it does exist, it's not as widespread as the first group says. And it's just people getting what they deserve. Consequences of their actions is how they would explain it. Now that is the second view. And like I said, those two views aren't really compatible with one another, so I'm gonna leave it at that, and let's move on. Minecraft. Developed by Mojang Studios and first released in 2011, Minecraft is literally one of the most widely played games of all time. It's been ported to like a metric fuck ton of different devices. It has so many different versions, has a massive fan base, a ton of mods, and has launched the career of many YouTubers. There's a ton of stuff about this game. Even though this game is more about crafting, survival, and making cool things, and well, you're also supposed to kill the Ender Dragon, but let's ignore that for a moment. Stuff like competitive PvP is huge. There's a huge community, there's rankings, there's a huge speedrunning scene. There's so many different things. You could have two fans of Minecraft who don't even do the same things as one another. This game can be whatever you want it to be almost. This game is a major cultural milestone due to the creativity it offers to people. It's so popular that the original creator, Notch, sold Mojang Studios to Microsoft for $2.5 billion, making him a billionaire. Can you imagine one single game propping up your company, one single game making you a billionaire? That's insane. However, I just barely missed this hype, as I was just at the age to where something like this wasn't cool enough for me or something. Funny enough though, I would end up experiencing a lot of Minecraft in my adult life, as my favorite YouTubers, members of the VTuber agency Hololive, have spent innumerable hours in this game. They are some of the most iconic moments in early Hololive comes from Minecraft, and they're just so comfy. And yeah, I'm a big VTuber fan, that's mostly what I watch, but that's how I ended up noticing a lot about Minecraft. Although, there were some cringe compilations a long time ago about the Minecraft convention, about how some people acted kind of cringe there. I did see those, but as for the game itself, yeah, I watched it mostly from Hololive, so I actually have experienced the game somewhat, but yeah, before that, I'd never even touched the game, so funny world, huh? Clickbait / deceptive advertising. Now, clickbait is a very broad category of things, but as a good way to describe it, I would highly recommend Veritasium's video on this, link in the description. I'm going to use his definitions of this, as it's a good breakdown, but again, you should really watch his video, it's really good about this. In summary, there are two main kinds of clickbait. What he calls type 1 clickbait is where you make your title, thumbnail, headline, or what have you popping enough to be clicked on. But clickbait in category 1, they aren't misleading or false. It's just making info eye-catching to get you to click on whatever the content is. It actually scratches the itch the clickbait caused. This isn't really the bad type, or about to get to the bad type. Type 2 clickbait is typically what people are referring to. That's when you make your title, thumbnail, headline, or what have you stand out in such a way that it makes people click on it, but the thing you're clicking on is either sensationalized, misleading, or heck, even just outright lies. That's the bad type of clickbait, and that's unfortunately what we're typically referring to. Now, as for deceptive advertising, this is even more broad. Some clickbait falls into this, but deceptive advertising is when advertising is misleading or false. You've seen these before, and weird online ads like miracle drugs that can cure you of anything, or mobile game ads that have nothing to do with the game itself. They just show gameplay of something completely different, and then when you play the game, it's not like that at all. These are everywhere on the internet. Just be careful of who or what you trust on the internet when it comes to advertising and clickbait in general. Reddit is that forum that you know for the uptight mods that have the neckbeard, and you also know them for the upvote and downvote system. To quote Wikipedia, for just to add more controversy to it, Reddit has been noted for its role in political activism, particularly in the United States, with notable left-wing and anti-theist subcultures on the website. It has received praise for many of its features, such as the ability to create several subreddits for niche communities. It has also been criticized for the spread of misinformation and its voting system, which can encourage online echo chambers. I think that paragraph really summarizes Reddit pretty well. It can be a fun place, and it's nice that you can create your own little subreddits, you know, but it really can make some really bad echo chambers, and the mods there are awful. Really, only Discord has mods that notorious. So, Reddit was founded in 2005, and beginning in 2024, it's actually on the stock market. Which is pretty interesting, actually. Like I said, you know, Reddit is broken up into user-created boards called subreddits, which is always denoted by r/ and then the community name. Reddit is where I found this iceberg on, r/iceberg charts. I do have a Reddit account that I had before this, but again, I made a new one for this, and it has a different name, so don't worry about it. But, you know, Reddit is a place that can only be as fun as you make it. So I would strongly suggest that if you do go onto there a lot, maybe venture out into other places and maybe explore a bit. There can be a lot of fun there, a lot of weird stuff. If you've been on the internet for a while, you've heard of eBay before. It's an e-commerce site where you can, buy things outright these days, but it's most well known for its auction system, in which you can bid on items for a chance to get a good price. I also tend to think of its purchase of PayPal, which is one of the most important resources of paying for things that I'll discuss later, assuming you don't want your credit card, to be entered on every site you buy things on. But PayPal was spun off in 2014, and eBay distanced itself from them sometime later. I'll talk about PayPal later. Let's go back to eBay. As for eBay, it used to be the go-to place to buy things online. Back when my mom was on dial-up, if she had to buy something online, it was on eBay. But, this isn't the case anymore. If I had to describe what you would go to eBay for these days, it's a niche product you can't find at Amazon or on like a normal store like Walmart or Target. And it would be generally used to find used products. At least that's what my experience. I mostly just buy niche things or used things from eBay. Now for Amazon, it's the place that replaced eBay in the online shopping zeitgeist. If you're not using Walmart or Target or some other, regular store to buy stuff, you're going on Amazon. It's also pretty famous for Amazon Prime, particularly in the US, for its fast 2-day or sometimes even 1-day or sometimes even same-day shipping. For just paying a yearly or monthly fee, Amazon Prime has been fantastic. It is a bit expensive, but hey, you get free shipping on everything and it's quick shipping. You may also know it for the Kindle, that e-reader. You might know it for Alexa, that thing you say Alexa to and that tells you something. Or Ring, that set of doorbell or floodlight cams that I actually use and has been very useful. Or you might know it for Amazon Prime Video, their competitor to Netflix, that you get for being an Amazon Prime member. Or heck, you might know it for Twitch. Probably the first website you think of when it comes to live streaming. Well, I personally think of YouTube because I watch streamers there, but that's besides the point. Amazon owns Twitch, and most people in the West would think of Twitch first. Further, you probably also know the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men alive, and at one point he was the richest man alive. Amazon is a big deal, and there are a decent amount of controversies with Amazon, like its treatment of its workers, the pay, lots of stuff like that. But you mostly know Amazon for it replacing eBay. Among Us, or Among Us as some people would say. Released in 2018, it's a social deduction game, kinda like Mafia or Secret Hitler, something like that. Played using online multiplayer of 4 to 15 players with stylized spacemen. They often call them beans. You have regular beans as crew doing tasks around the ship with a set of imposters pretending to be beans who will try to kill the crew. They can also, the imposters can also do sabotages where they cause bad things to happen on the map, like turning off the lights or causing a reactor meltdown. If you see a dead body, you report it, or you can manually call a meeting by hitting a button in the middle of the map usually. Then after everyone discusses it a bit, you can vote. Either somebody gets voted off or nobody does, either by voting to skip or by it ending in a tie. If there are no more imps or all the tasks are done, the crew wins. If there are an equal amount of imps in crew, or if the crew did not fix a critical sabotage within the time limit, the imps win. It's made by the studio Innersloth. Innersloth were the guys who made Henry Stickmin, a pretty nostalgic set of Flash games that were released as actual games in the Henry Stickmin collection. Anyway, Among Us is their much more popular game. It absolutely blew the fuck up during the pandemic in 2020 and spawned a ton of memes. Among Us sus. Whatever. It got so popular, it led to a guy complaining about people talking about it nonstop. And this was honestly one of the funniest things to come out of Among Us. I'll play it here for you.
Stop posting about Among Us! I'm tired of seeing it! My friends on TikTok send me memes. On Discord, it's fucking memes. I was in a server, right? And all of the channels are just Among Us stuff. I showed my champion underwear to my girlfriend, and the logo, I flipped it, and I said, hey, babe, when the underwear says, ding, 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 ding. I fucking looked at a trash can, I said, that's a bit sussy. I looked at my penis, I think of the astronaut's helmet, and I go, penis, more like peen sus! Ah!
And that became a meme in and of itself, that people would edit him to say something other than Among Us, some other kind of franchise, and it'd be pretty funny.
Stop posting about I'm tired of seeing it! My friends on TikTok send me on Discord, it's fucking I was in a server, right? And all of the channels are just I showed my champion underwear and the logo, I flipped it and I said, hey babe! Ding 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 ding. I fucking looked at it and I said, I looked at Among Us. I think of the astronaut's helmet and I go, penis, more like
I did not play Among Us during its heyday, but I actually did start playing it in 2025 and had a great time. I got so damn addicted to it that I had to limit myself to playing it to 4 hours a day as a way to lessen my time, mind you. I was that addicted. I haven't played it recently, but I'm sort of getting the urge of talking about it now. If you haven't played it since the pandemic, you may actually be surprised how many things are different. Like the different imposter roles such as Viper or Phantom, or new crew roles like Detective. There are also cosmetics in a so-called cosmic cube that you can unlock in a branching path. My favorite content creators, Hololive, played this game a lot in its heyday, and even sometimes to this day. It's a good collab game. They even have their own cosmic cube, which I'll show right now. I typically use the Yokayu one, but I can go on any of them. Please do another one of these, Innersloth. Please do. I'm begging you. It'd be really nice. I'm begging you. I'd get on my hands and knees and beg you. Make another one of these, please. I did miss this one myself since I didn't start playing until 2025, and this promotion ended in 2022, but you can get it in-game if you do a little something with the game files. Anyway, this game was a big success. It's still somewhat relevant to this day, and it was fun for me, at least. GIFs. This stands for Graphics Interchange Format. Again, known as a GIF. Now, many people pronounce it GIF, and that's honestly the most popular pronunciation, but there is a debate on how to pronounce it. The creator of this format pronounces it GIF, and that's how I do it. But just know there's a whole debate about it. It's actually one of the biggest debates over pronunciation on the internet, funny enough. But hey, if you don't give me shit for calling it GIF, I'll let you call it GIF without making fun of you. Deal? Deal. So what is a GIF? It's a file format. You know, how you upload photos on social media or what have you. Now, typically, if you're doing a still image, you're using JPEG or PNG files. But GIFs are also a pretty popular format, but it's gone through a few phases in its regular use online. A long time ago, before I imagine many of you were around, it actually was more used for still images than it was for animations. It was because it's reasonably good quality for their size, or at least it was back then, and it's easy to make an image transparent if it's a GIF. But these days, it's most known for the fact that a GIF can be animated. So instead of needing to upload a full-blown video, you can have a looped animation that's low on bandwidth and low on size. You'll see these on social media all the time. And back when 4chan was originally first released, that was one of the few file formats you could use. You'll often see Reddit comments with a GIF as well. Now in the modern day, files like WebMs, MP4s, and other such files have taken some mindshare away from GIFs on social media like Twitter or on an image board like 4chan. Since, while GIFs are nice, they're not really that high quality looking these days. That matters more with fast internet speeds, and since high storage space is a lot more common now, GIFs saving a lot of space isn't really all that relevant. But still, GIFs hold a special place in my heart, and I don't think they're going away anytime soon. Friday Night Funkin' plus mods. If I was too old to get into Minecraft when it came out, I had no chance of getting into this. But I'll still explain it. Friday Night Funkin' is a rhythm game released in 2020 on Newgrounds, which is a site we'll most definitely be talking about later. And this game got a lot of that pandemic boom, that sweet, sweet pandemic boom. You play as a character named Boyfriend, who must defeat opponents in this rhythm game to keep dating the character named Girlfriend. Interestingly, this game was actually made for a game jam, which is just an event where people get together for a few days to make a game and compete with others who are doing the same, just to, quickly, who can make the best thing in a time limit with limited resources. I always like seeing game jam success stories. Anyway, this is one of those extremely popular games with kids and teens, so much so that it got a lot of mods. A lot. Usually these mods involve new songs, different characters and such. There's a reason why this entry says plus mods on there. Some are really popular and others are controversial. Like, if you just look at the thumbnail of this video, I had an image of one that I found from from a mod where it had Girlfriend being crucified. There's an example, because remember, this is a kids, sometimes teens, but mostly kids playing this game. But there's way more controversial things like that. Like, even more controversial themes like incest and stuff like that. But also there's a lot of, whenever there's a space online with a lot of kids, there are groomers. And because this place has a lot of mods, well, groomers often use mods to, let's just say, work their way in. I'll just put it like that. So, Friday Night Funkin' seems to be a pretty fun game with a very young community that has controversy after controversy because some of those mods that are there are pretty controversial. And let's just say, I can really only think of Roblox that would have more special type of people going after kids there, let's say. Wojaks. Oh man, I could write a book on this entry alone. There's a lot of history with Wojak. A Wojak falls into one of those memes that once it existed, has morphed and changed and evolved constantly over time. Kind of like Pepe or Doge. It has never not been relevant since it began. Trust me, that you might not realize just how much Wojak has morphed and become a part of meme culture or just internet culture in general. But first, let's start with a bit of history. The exact beginnings of Wojak are actually a bit murky, relying on unverified claims by a guy claiming to be a certain guy. The first 100% confirmed use of this face was on the website sadanduseless.com in 2009. I'll show it on here. It's a web archive of it, but still, it's there. I'll put it in the description. You may actually recognize this meme format, but you might not have realized how early it was with Wojak in the corner there. But in any case, this is the first 100% verified and confirmed sighting of Wojak. There could be ones before this, but this is 100% verified. The next outright confirmed use of this image was on the German image board Krautchan in 2010 on their international board, or INT. I'll show it on screen right now. But this time, it's in a face, close up with the image name. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. It just means warm face in Polish. These are the 100% guaranteed uses, and it was associated with feels posts, as in emotional contexts. Such things already existed on Krautchan before it became associated with Wojak, as seen here. I'll show this on screen now. In 2009, before our first confirmed Wojak sighting. But the next bit is a leap of faith here. In 2012, a user named Wojak claimed to be a Krautchan user named Wojak, and did an Ask Me Anything thread on Reddit about this. His claims are, I found it on a Polish image board, Vichan or Vichan, whichever, without any text if I remember correctly, and just with that, warm face.jpg as file name, as responding to the cool face, which is happy and shows approval. Before I continue, the user Wojak was apparently known on Krautchan, as according to this archived screenshot. And according to the original Wojak post on Krautchan, it was a Pole, as Polish person, a Pole, who posted it. So, it would make sense. But on image boards, you post anonymously. So you gotta be a notorious user for people to recognize you despite that. Because he posted it anonymously in the original Wojak post, he didn't have a name attached to the post. It could very well have been Wojak making the post, but it is an assumption. And as for the guy on Reddit claiming to be this Wojak guy, that isn't confirmed either. He could just be bullshitting. But it does seem reasonable. But this is also an assumption. Do you see why I said we're making leaps of faith here? We're just trusting people. But still, it seems reasonable that this is the case. After this first Krautchan post, that image became widespread for feels posts. I would feel bad for not mentioning this tangent, but interestingly, in Poland, they had a unique kind of feels posts. They were called this in Polish, which just means this feeling, which, again, Polish side of the internet. These were like those demotivational images, but with the captions like, remember this feeling? And was widespread on Vichan, that Polish image board. It doesn't exist anymore, but when it spread to Krautchan, feels meant a less nostalgic and melancholic feeling like it did on the Polish side, but more of an outright sad feeling. This sad feeling from Krautchan is the context in which it spread to the rest of the world. When it got to the English-speaking side of the world, especially on 4chan, it got combined with posts that would say that feeling when, which you'd often just say that feel when, or even just TFW, or the green, the carrot that's green texting, TFW, because when you put a carrot on 4chan, it makes the text green, and that's the quote function, yada yada yada. Then it would be morphed into images like this, where two Wojaks hug and say, I know that feel, bro. Instead of referring to Wojak the user, the English side calls this guy's face Wojak, and this is how it's used to this day. Okay, let's be a bit less nitty gritty and speedrun a little bit more. After a meme got popular on 4chan, it spreads to Reddit. Then it goes to Facebook and everywhere else. That's how memes spread, from 4chan to Reddit to elsewhere. Instead of dying when it became old, Wojak had become meme-morphed. For example, the 4chan board, Robot9000 or R9K, believed that Wojak was too popular for normies. Well, they actually wouldn't use the term normie, especially back then. They would say a normal F term I can't say. That term is where normie came from, since you can't say normal F term in most places outside of 4chan, so you'd say normie so you'd still get the message across. Anyway, to retake the meme away from normies, they would make Wojak and Pepe, which will be explained later, but they made Wojak into a very gross and otherwise degenerate memes like this, where Pepe does gross things and like hurling shit at Wojak, or Wojak getting ISIS beheaded from Pepe. Stuff like that was pretty common to try to take it away from the normies, but this didn't work. And Wojak is still on many mainstream platforms, like this emote on Twitch, which is just a pretty popular edit of Wojak. Now let's go through the several most popular evolutions of Wojak now, but I do want to make a note. Wojak, again, remember, Wojak was originally a username of somebody, but it got morphed into meaning this one image, but it also has gotten morphed to where you would take away the woe part and you would put whatever it is in front of in the meme and put Jack at the end. You'll see what I mean, but just know that that's pretty common these days. Something Jack, like Soy Jack, something like that. You'll see more in just a moment. Let's go through some of the most popular evolutions of Wojak right now. There's a subset of Wojaks with an Umer ending, like Doomer, Coomer, Zoomer Jack. One of my favorite uses of these are the Boomer Wojak, doing something like this. The format is a Zoomer Jack doing something on his computer, where a Boomer Jack cranks the fuck up on his sound system. I like that one a lot. Or this format where boomers are hosting a party with loud, nostalgic music while Wojak is sleeping. There are a few formats like this. Another is the Boomer and Wojak, while Boomer's on the mower, as boomers do, they mow the lawn early in the morning. I might wake them up. That's the format here. There are more, but let's move on to a different type of Jack. Another major evolution is the Soy Jack, in which it represents the weird cognition of young and middle-aged men these days to stick their mouth open when getting super excited over children's entertainment, among other things. Here are some. Soy Jack with a Nintendo Labo, 2 Soy Jacks pointing, which I used one of those in my thumbnail. Soy Jack showing his phone, that's another pretty popular one. Look at this catalog of Soy Jacks. Now, another big version of Wojak is the NPC Wojaks. This type of Wojak stems from the video game concept with non-playable characters. Sometimes you may notice how real-life people sometimes fall into one line of thought all the time at all things, so this is to mock them as getting brainwashed by representing them as NPCs. As these ones are very political in nature, I'll just show templates with nothing filled in. Here's one replacing, their NPC programming. Here's the NPC getting mad. I support current NPC thing. I support current thing. I'll put some more interesting ones before I end this long entry out. Here's a girl Wojak. It's not just men. There are girl Wojaks. Here's a Doomer girl Wojak. Here's the Trad wife Wojak. Here's the Grug Wojak, like a caveman. Here's Chud Jack. Here's a Brainlet Wojak, which is a whole thing of it and of itself with some amazingly creative ones. There's pink Wojaks for when your stocks go down. There's green Wojaks for when your stocks go up. There's so many, I can't fit everything here. Wojak has really transcended into a meme that I can never really see dying at this rate. He'll just keep morphing into something new, but this entry has to end. So, if I didn't put your favorite Jack in, it's not because I forgot about it, it's because, I don't have infinite time here. But Wojak is just one of those memes that will probably be here till the day I die. Creepypastas is another entry I actually have a lot to say about. There's a really good video explaining the history of creepypastas, and it's one that I referenced a lot in this entry that I'll link in the description. It's by CZ's World. I'll do a a short summary of creepypasta history, but his video did it better than I ever could, so I strongly suggest his video. But basically, imagine urban legends and horror stories you would tell at a campfire, but now they're online. That's the creepy part. What the heck is the pasta part? Well, there's a term called copypasta in which people would copy and paste the same message all over the net. The most well-known copypasta probably being that Navy SEAL copypasta, you know, what the fuck did you say about me, you little bitch? I'll have you know that I graduated on my, you know, such and such and such. Yada yada yada. Therefore, creepypastas are creepy stories being copied and pasted and shared everywhere. Skipping the ancient internet history of creepypasta, like with chainmail, Usenet, and very early websites, and moving to the stuff that led directly to it, one of the first stories people reference as a creepypasta is Ted the Caver. Well, it was not called creepypasta at the time, it has been retroactively called one, and it was very influential.
But it did establish many mainstays of the movement, like first-person narrative, mimicry of an existing format, in this case diary logs, fact-fiction ambiguity, viral shareability, and a good old cliffhanger ending.
It got very popular and was pretty believable for some people. Other stories would pop up after that and become widespread on places like 4chan, Encyclopedia Dramatica, Something Awful, but the term was coined on 4chan. I want to make a particular note about 4chan for a moment, as I was around at the time. The paranormal board of 4chan, otherwise known as X, was a very different place than it is now. If you went on it right now, it's almost 100% a bunch of schizos legitimately acting nuts. Seriously, X is a weird place right now. Back when creepypastas were becoming a thing, X was a place where people would share creepy YouTube videos, creepy stories, making green text stories, which often became actual creepypastas and made SCP stories, more on all that stuff later. I'm just a bit nostalgic for this time. You know, it was a different time. Later, two sites in particular were made to house these stories that came from X, and a couple other places. First was Creepypasta.com. This site was used to not just house them, but curate them. They have their own guidelines over submissions and such, and can and will reject bad ones, even if the, has a list of ones they won't accept. There's also the Creepypasta Wiki, which is also pretty similar, that also has its own quality standards, though I think it has lower quality standards than the other site, but don't quote me on that. As this niche was becoming popular, many YouTubers decided to narrate these stories and put these on YouTube. These were everywhere and still exist to this day. But a long time ago, there were three creators called the Big Three of creepypasta narrators. One was Mr. Creepypasta, another was Creeps McPasta, and these two are still uploading to this day, but are well past their prime in popularity. The third of the Big Three, though, was Creepypasta Jr., but he stopped uploading in January 2022. By the way, didn't these three make a joke video where they went to the Eiffel Tower or the Statue of Liberty, but they meant the small one in Las Vegas, whereas the other one of them actually went to the actual city the full-size monument was, and they were wondering where the heck the other two were? Does anyone remember this? I can't find this joke video for whatever reason. Anyway, those are the Big Three. There were many more than these three who were uploading their narrations of creepypastas, and there are still plenty these days, but the popularity of these is nowhere near what they used to be. One other interesting note about these narration videos: it would be kind of dull without background music, right? So most did have some. There was a specific YouTuber who made the vast majority of background music, as he made them free to use as long as you gave him credit. His name was Mew. This channel's music is so iconic because they were everywhere in these narration channels. You couldn't go a single video without his music. I actually still have an official playlist of these songs saved on my YouTube channel if I want to feel nostalgic, which I'll link in the description as well. It's a great playlist. If you're ever just bored and you have time and you want to listen to something that might be a little creepy, might be a little depressing, you should try this. Again, linked in the description. Now, there are a lot of iconic creepypastas that became huge on the internet. I think the list by CZ's World is honestly a good enough list. You should check out his video for a summary of these stories, but I'll list the ones he listed. Ted the Caver that we mentioned before, Black Eyed Children, Jeff the Killer, Smile.jpg, Candle Cove, The Rake, The Slenderman, which there's actually an entry about that soon, The Russian Sleep Experiment, Ben Drowned, which I do want to note, one of my friends was obsessed with this one back in the day. Anyway, there's Red Mist, Normal Porn for Normal People, Lavender Town Syndrome, Eyeless Jack, Tiki Toby, Baraska, Ritual Pastas, which are a pretty cool subgenre. I'll add a couple more he either didn't mention or he only briefly showed but didn't do any summaries of them. There's Suicide Mouse, Rap Rat, Sonic.exe, Herobrine, Dead Bart, Tails Doll, Username 666, and I think that's enough examples of the classic ones. No, classic doesn't mean good in this case. It just means popular in the heyday. A lot of these actually sucked. You know, they are still popular and classic. In fact, you know, most creepypastas are pretty bad, and thus, you know, it spawned a whole subgenre called crappypastas. There used to be a website called crappypasta.com, and it was a fun place to dunk on the really bad stories. You can find it archived on the Wayback Machine. I'll link it in the description. With their popularity came controversy. There were a few cases of actual crimes like murder over creepypastas, like the Slenderman stabbing and the Lightning Jack stabbing, which made these stories even more mainstream. Note that there are entries on this later on, so I'll leave it at that for these incidents. Eventually, many creepypastas went mainstream enough to get actual full-length movies. I'll link a catalog of 27 of these movies in the description, but these are generally pretty bad. Creepypasta, in general, had died down in popularity quite considerably over the years, but they're still around. If you're curious about modern trends in creepypasta, because I still follow them sometimes, there are 3 things I'll mention. Now, these are just things I noticed as someone who still occasionally reads these things and listens to narrated videos. Number 1, names of creepypastas are no longer short and sweet. They are like light novels, if you know what those are. For example, here's just a few titles I randomly found by going on one of these channels and just going by new ones that they narrated. Here's one. If you ever find undeveloped Polaroids in an empty house, don't touch them. Or here's another one. I just wanted a place with windows. Instead, I found the cold people. Or here's another one. If you see a gas station that says, last stop for 70 miles, keep driving. You see what I mean? Really long and kind of weird, but hey, that's the style these days. Number 2, creepypasta these days tend to either be long mythos-level tales or short and quirky with a very unique premise. The latter being most of what I read these days. And finally, number 3, another big trend. It was, at a time, there was a trend towards rules pastas. Just a few years ago, in which someone gets a job, they have to follow, and they get this list of strange rules, right? Storytellers seem to love having protagonists that don't believe the strange rules, and they break them, and it's always kind of weird. But these rules pastas were everywhere. But there is a really good one I remember from r/NoSleep by Drunken Swordsman called "I'm a Cinema Usher. We have some strange rules." I'll link the story in the description. There's also a good narration of this story. This video by Lighthouse Horror is a really good narration. I'll link the story and the narration in the description. I wasn't a fan of this trend, but this was one of the really good ones. Now, there's a lot one could say about creepypastas for a lot longer, but a lot of them are entries later on. But the whole trend itself, I've summarized it well enough. Now, from creepypastas in general to a very specific creepypasta. Probably the most popular of them, the Slender Man. He was a creepypasta started on Something Awful by Eric Knudsen. He's a tall, thin, humanoid creature with black tendrils, a black suit, and a face that changes depending on who views him. But this idea of his face being different depending on who views him, I imagine, is tough to draw. And since the original Slender Man images had him, you know, his face just white, that's why people ended up just portraying him that way. The whole face looking different, that's been kind of tossed to the wayside, sadly. He's probably the most popular creepypasta character with many long-running horror series like Marble Hornets or Everyman Hybrid, for example. There was a pretty iconic game released in 2012 called Slender, and then renamed to Slender the 8 Pages, which was shown in many Let's Plays of the day, like this one. There was a sequel to this game called Slender the Arrival in 2013 as well. There's a ton of other ones, but those are the 2 big ones. Speaking of games, he inspired the Enderman enemy of Minecraft apparently, which is pretty neat. And then of course there's the stabbing incident I mentioned before, but that's a separate entry for later, so I'll just leave it at that. There's also Slenderman movies. The Slenderman, it's The Slenderman, released in 2013. The next movie that came out was Always Watching a Marble Hornets story in 2015, which adapts the Marble Hornets. And then there was Beware the Slenderman in 2016, which is about the stabbing. Then there's the infamous Slenderman 2018 film, which is widely panned. Outside of these, he's been referenced in all sorts of media, but I need to wind this entry down. Overall, Slenderman is a major creepypasta character, and his legacy still lives on. There's so many things that reference him, it's kind of insane. Gacha Life. But before I explain that, let's define the term gacha. Gacha and its history and effects on people is pretty well talked about in this video by Siggy Snake, that I'll link in the description. I'd suggest you watch this for an explanation. It's a really good video, and I'll show a clip, but please watch the whole video for a good dive into the genre.
The term gacha game comes from the Japanese gachapon, a type of capsule vending machine. Costing 100 to 500 yen a spin, gachapon machines typically contain sets of collectibles, with the series being anything from popular anime to bowls of ramen. By the very nature of the machine, the outcome is random. You never know what figure you'll get when you turn the crank. This randomness adds an element of chance and excitement, but it also allows for gachapon's more insidious aspects.
Which is what that video goes on to describe. But to put it bluntly, it turns from getting a cool gadget from a capsule to a gambling machine in which you are constantly putting in money, getting duplicates you don't want, and putting even more money in until you get the full set. The Japanese have put this practice into video games called gacha games. Typically, you spend money for an in-game currency that you then use to spin for a chance to win a new item that you want of various rarities. Some are just that simple, some are wildly complicated with this, and it would be unfair of me to leave this out, but gacha games do let you earn said currencies in game usually, but it can take a while. And some have special tiers of currencies that are different than the main ones, and they can't be earned in game and are said either paid for with money or with regular game currency. Complex stuff to hide the gambling mechanics and how much you're spending. You know, that's the name of the game. Now, when we say gacha games, we're typically referring to East Asian games like Japanese, Chinese, and Korean games that do these practices, where in the West, we tend to call these, loot boxes, microtransactions, stuff like that. But it's the same concept. So that's what gacha is. Now, what's Gacha Life? Made in 2018 and developed by Luname? I'll just say Luname. It has a dress-up mode, a life mode where you can interact with NPCs, mini-games, and has a studio mode where you can make your own customizable scenes. But as this is a gacha game, this means there are in-game purchases. And as with many gacha games, you buy an in-game currency, gems in this case, and then you use these gems to pull for various items and cosmetics. You can earn these in-game if you grind, but like with all gacha games, it's faster to spend money. This game is very popular with kids and teens, which is always a concern when it comes to gacha games. It has a pretty large content creating sphere by and for children, but there's an entry for this later on, so I'll end this here. Alright, now it's time to talk about some of your guys' favorite website, OnlyFans. OnlyFans is a subscription service based in London, founded in 2016. You know damn well what their main form of content is. Porn. or at least very sexy women, and I guess men as well, in provocative positions if it isn't outright porn. You pay the quote-unquote creator a subscription fee each month to get access to the poon. Funny enough, in 2021, they announced OnlyFans would not allow porn anymore due to pressure from banks. The banks were like, "Oh, you got a license for that porn?" But like, bruh, that would kill their business. And so they reversed this a few days later. Apparently they have 4.63 million creators and 377.5 million user accounts and $7.22 billion spent by users in 2024. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. I could say more about this platform, but I know many of you have active subscriptions to this site and know much more about it than I do. You know who you are. Porn was different back in my day, so I'll leave it at that. Oh, TikTok. Do I really have to explain this to people who are probably doom scrolling it while watching this very video right now? Well, in any case, the Chinese company ByteDance made a social media site called Douyin, but this is China. China is pretty heavily closed off to the rest of the world due to the Great Firewall, so this is a Chinese thing. When they were expanding overseas, they chose to name the product TikTok and made it a separate app to those outside of China. In 2017, the company bought up the app Musical.ly, or musical.ly, but I'll just say Musical.ly, which was a social media site where people could create lip-syncing videos, and then it merged it into TikTok with existing users keeping their account. I mention this because my sisters are in that generation, that younger generation that is hugely into this stuff. I remember them using Musical.ly actually, and like many of you, they spend a lot of their time on TikTok as well. I've never used it myself, but TikTok is a platform with pretty short form videos that you can scroll infinitely with, like YouTube Shorts, if you know what those are. It's, YouTube Shorts were inspired by this. That I'm familiar with. As for TikTok, there is some major concern over the CCP having access to non-Chinese people's data on a massive scale on there, and potential censorship concerns considering how censorship heavy China is. As for trends and stuff, I'll leave those up for the individual entries on the iceberg, but TikTok trends seem to come and go really quickly, and I'm gonna be honest, you guys could probably name way more TikTok trends than I can. But again, there's going to be plenty on this iceberg, so stay tuned. I'm curious why this entry came after OnlyFans, but nonetheless, internet pornography. Pornography and the internet is like peanut butter and jelly. They go together really well, or at least a lot of people think so. There is a TV tropes entry, for example, called "The Internet is for Porn," which has a boatload of examples of this being said in media, which is pretty funny. Another pretty common thing to mention is the rules of the internet, which was a 4chan creation of the general rules of the internet. Rule 34 was, if it exists, there is porn of it, no exceptions. And Rule 35 is, if there is no porn of it, porn will be made of it. Heck, there are actually 2 different sites called Rule 34 just in and of itself. Yes, there are actually more than one that are big, 2 popular ones. Internet pornography is a very wide topic. If I had to, I would divide it into 5 main categories. 1 is real life porn, as in real people. 2, 2D drawings / animations. 3, 3D images / animations. 3D meaning like character models in video games, stuff like that. Number 4, porn games. And 5, erotic stories. There are porn sites with videos like Pornhub and many others. Pornhub's just a big one. There's paid for platforms like OnlyFans, which we covered. There's very niche ones as well for niche fetishes and other things like that. There's many places to look at images. 4chan has whole boards dedicated to different pornography things. Reddit has a shit ton of subreddits dedicated to porn. There's a divide in general. I'm just going to say there's a divide between Japanese and East Asian art, but Japanese and Western art. There's a big gap between that. There's also a ton of Voodoo sites, which is mostly East Asian, but mostly Japanese 2D artwork. of that kind. There's a thing called Doujinshi and Western comics that are similar to these. There's entire storefronts to buy H games, like DL site. AI is getting used a lot for this stuff, both by making content and by being like loot chatbots. There's also a lot of messed up stuff too. The dark web being an example of having some of that messed up stuff, but there's plenty of messed up stuff on the clear net. There's places like Lit Erotica to find a lot of porn stories. Erotic stories is what they typically called. That type of stuff. There's quite a few sites like that. Tons and tons of things I could talk about here, but this is YouTube. I'm gonna leave it here. Despacito. Despacito is an absurdly popular Spanish song sung by Luis Fonsi and featuring Daddy Yankee. The version you know of was released for download in 2017 by Universal Music Latin Entertainment and ended up topping something like 47 country music charts. That's a lot of countries where that's topping it. In my country, in the US, it was the first Spanish song on the Billboard Hot 100 since Macarena, which was done 2 decades prior. You probably know it more for the YouTube upload, which was the most viewed YouTube video from August 2017 to November 2020. It was the first video to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 billion views. It was, that's a billion with a B. It was the first video to achieve those. It was also the most liked video on YouTube from July of 2017 to January of 2025. It became the first video on the site to reach 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 55 million likes. But as of writing this, it's still the second most watched video on YouTube, just ahead of Coco Melon Nursery Rhyme, but just behind Baby Shark Dance. So in other words, Despacito is a really popular song. It's gotten so many accolades and so many awards that it definitely deserves a spot this high up. The Baby Shark Dance. It had been around for a while by various different people. The video you are probably aware of is not the origin of the song itself. The YouTube video uploaded by South Korean entertainment company Pinkfong. As of writing, this video has 16 billion views. That's 16 billion views. That's a lot. It was the first YouTube video to reach 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 billion views. I can't get over that's twice the population of the world. That's insane. It also achieved many other achievements and accolades, but I want to leave it at that. That number speaks for itself. It has super simple lyrics that are apparently very catchy. This thing was anywhere and everywhere. Well, some people found it annoying, but their kids would be singing it everywhere. One of the funnier stories to come from this comes from the article Oklahoma jail workers charged after forcing inmates to listen to Baby Shark on loop, Probe shows. And then, according to this later article in 2023, I'm going to quote from it, but a federal civil rights lawsuit 4 inmates filed in 2021 accused Miles and Butler of using excessive force and discipline tactics described as torture events. Inmates John Basco and Daniel Hedrick alleged that they were forced to stand in a stressed position while listening to Baby Shark at different times in late 2019. The suit describes the standing stress position as being left to stand for hours in handcuffs. Christian Charles Miles and Gregory Cornell Butler Jr. pleaded no contest to misdemeanor cruelty to a prisoner, court records show. In addition to probation, Miles and Butler must complete 40 hours of community service, and they were fined $200 in order to pay $300 in victim compensation. They are also no longer allowed to work in law enforcement, the court record states. Hopefully that shows you how annoying this song was. It was apparently part of a so-called torture event. Apparently the song was that annoying that, other than just the standing position, having to listen to that song on loop made some people never be allowed to work in law enforcement again, do hours of community service, have to pay fine. So a lot of people find this song annoying, but a lot of kids love it. That's why it has 16 billion views. So I guess this is a cultural staple for children. Speaking of, Fortnite. Fortnite originally started as a name for a general game for a couple different modes. The main one was supposed to be Save the World, which was a PvE co-op mode in which you would complete missions, upgrade weapons, and go through 4 zones in the world infested by the storm. Basically zombie-like things. But, well, a different mode ended up becoming popular, that being Fortnite Battle Royale. It became so popular that when people say Fortnite, they mean this mode. They probably haven't even heard of the other mode. This mode is PvP, in which 100 people fight to the death with various weapons. They can build structures, and the last one standing in the shrinking map gets what's called a Victory Royale. The game got massive, with major content creators playing it and making it their career. A notable one is Ninja, who got insanely popular because of this game. Microsoft's failed streaming platform Mixer paid him to stream exclusively there for a hefty chunk of change. After the site shut down and going back to Twitch, he's still the 3rd most followed Twitch streamer. Now, there's more on him later, he has an entry later. I'm just using him as an example of how popular Fortnite could be, that this guy who was just good at Fortnite could be that freaking popular. This game has a competitive scene that's very large as well. It's also known for its in-game currency V-Bucks that can be used to purchase dances, like in cosmetics. These dances and cosmetics are of any popular media you can think of. Not to put my bias in it, there was a cosmetic featuring the VTuber Hoshimachi Suisei, the 2nd VTuber in the game, which I think is really cool, and you should definitely check it out if you like Fortnite. It's really cool to have a VTuber you like in there. Other notable ones, and by notable I mean notable for me in particular, would be the Vocaloid Hatsune Miku skin, which is pretty cool, and the first VTuber skin, Kazune Ai, which, you know, that means a VTuber I like and Hatsune Miku could be dabbing each other. It's just hilarious. Anyway, as a personal story, by the way, about this game, I have a personal story with this game. I've never played it. Again, I'm too old for any of these games up here. I had to stay at a relative's place, on a trip, and the lodgings, I slept in, my younger relative's room, and they slept with their parents' room. But his room was absolutely decked out with Fortnite stuff. I had to sleep with that dang poster of a banana guy staring at me, and it was something else. Anyway, Fortnite's a really big game. It's a huge scene. It might not be as big as it once was, but it's still a huge thing. They have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of collabs all the time, so it's a big cultural milestone, especially for younger people. ASMR. Finally get into a really good one. ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. I won't get too much into the technicals, but ASMR is a mostly audio source that gives your body a tingling sensation called tingles. The common term used is triggers, which is the stimuli that gives you the tingles. Wikipedia has a list of common triggers, but I'll list just the first 4. Listening to a softly spoken or whispering voice. Listening to a person blow or exhale into a microphone. Listening to mouth sounds such as quiet clicking of the tongue or tisking. Listening to tapping, especially with one's acrylic nails onto hard surfaces. But as this is referring to the internet use of ASMR, it's normally a video or stream on YouTube or Twitch in which usually a girl, but sometimes guys, will make these sounds. There's specific equipment to make these sounds. They come out really well with headphones. The most famous one is the Ku 100, and I'll show it right on the screen, which has mics for ears. This one's kind of a gold standard for it. If you're an ASMR person, this is one of those important things. A lot of VTubers do ASMR as well. Mayoshi Akai Hato has done plenty behind YouTube membership, though some are public. My favorite ASMR creator, though, is Sue Patra. She's a Japanese VTuber who's not in HoloLive like Mayoshi, but she's as close as one could get. Some would even call her an honorary holo. Anyway, on her YouTube channel, she does an ASMR stream every week, and it's kind of the gold standard for safe for work ASMR, because she's been very consistent for a long time, and really good at it. While ASMR can be completely safe for work, it doesn't have to be. There are not safe for work ASMR creators. A platform that hosts a lot of these is rplay.live, which does cost money and is mostly VTubers. But other places are hidden behind Patreon walls, for example, and there's just other places. But if you get your mind out of the gutter for a moment, it can be a nice, relaxing experience. So you should check out ASMR stuff if you're ever interested. Roblox is a game creation tool and game platform released in 2006. This platform is geared towards and populated mostly by minors. You know, because I'm using the word minor instead of children, you know that something's about to go wrong. There's a bit of foreshadowing right there. Anyway, as with most games like this, on a tier like this, Fortnite, Friday Night Funkin', etc., I haven't played it. Or, well, it's a platform, so I haven't played any of the games on the platform. Apparently, this platform hosts millions of user-created games. It also features a currency called Robux that creators can sell things in game for. Roblox lore spans far and wide and from game to game in it. A well-known issue of Roblox is its lax content moderation. Remember, it's a platform mostly populated with minors. So, outside of Robux being viewed as predatory to minors, there are concerns of grooming all over. Government agencies have also shown concern, by the way. There's a good YouTube channel that focuses on exposing Roblox predators named Schlep that I'll link here. Heck, he's exposed Roblox so much for this issue, they're threatening to sue him. I would watch his recent videos if you're interested in this, or you could watch another guy, Turkey Tom. He summarizes all this stuff that's going on, which I'll also link. To not end this entry on a negative note, this game, or well, platform of games, is like Minecraft or Fortnite in terms of how much impact it's had on kids, with an average daily active user count of 85.3 million as of February 2025. That's an average daily active user count. 85.3 million. That's a pretty big deal. Roblox is just one of those games that is big on the hearts of a lot of kids. Just try to be careful around who you're playing with. They might be a lot older than you might expect, and they might have some nefarious purposes. Undertale/Deltarune. Undertale is a 2015 RPG with bullet hell segments made by indie dev Toby Fox. This game is pretty unique for its mechanic in which you can choose to kill or spare your enemies. It's probably most well known for its genocide routes where you kill everything, or the true pacifist route where you spare every creature and befriend certain characters. This game is also well known for how much it breaks the fourth wall. It's obsessed with it. There's a lot of humor. It's a very meta game. I know it for how a VTuber I liked, Amane Kanata, had a whole set of streams where she battled the boss Sans 342 times over 4 separate streams for around 30 hours. One of the streams of this, which was almost 12 hours of just attempts, was her 11th most popular stream, which is insane considering this was one of the most popular VTubers out there, and this was early in her career. That's rare to happen. Usually when you become a popular VTuber, usually your older stuff doesn't get very popular compared to your newer stuff. And this was one of her old things, so that was this was a huge deal. Anyway, a good video covering this was from Backtracks, which I'll link in the description. I'll also link a playlist of Kanata's full playthrough so you can watch the whole thing, not just the Sans battle. One more shameless VTuber plug from me, if you don't mind. A song in the game called Death by Glamour, which I'll link in the description, was officially covered by the most subbed VTuber in the world, Hosho Marine. This song is completely instrumental in the game, but she added her own lyrics, and it's a pretty high-effort music video, because she's a big fan of the game. So, really, check it out if you're interested. It's a really high-effort and good one. That's enough of my VTuber plugging for a moment. Undertale is one of the most praised and popular indie games of all time. An example, to show its fame is that the character Sans was added as a Mii costume to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is nuts for a Western indie game. Further, this game has one of those notorious fan bases that love it to death, perhaps a little too much. I'll give you a good example of the fan base being a bit over the top. The YouTuber Matt Pat in 2016 gifted a copy of Undertale to the former Pope Francis at the Vatican, which, oh my goodness, that's that. If there's anything going over the top, it's the one thing you can give to the Pope. You give him Undertale. That's something. Now, if one were to critique the game, it would be its style of writing. Some would call this Tumblr the game, or Tumblr Tale. No, I'm not going to elaborate further on what this means. It's just a criticism some people have of the game. The other game in this entry is Deltarune. It's an RPG released episodically for 6 chapters and set in a parallel universe to Undertale. It is also made by Toby Fox. As of writing, only chapters 1 through 4 are released, with the rest supposed to come out in late 2026 or later. This game got rid of the random encounters and instead had every enemy visible on screen before you choose to fight it. Otherwise, it's a very similar game to Undertale. I'm sure everyone else can go in depth on many other differences. It's had a very similar reception to Undertale, and that makes sense. It was combined with this entry. Fanfictions, fan art, and other fan labor. I'll describe fan art first. Fan art is simply when fans of a work or person makes art of said work or person without any input from the original creators. Bigger fandoms have more fan art, but even smaller fandoms tend to get some, and it can come in many ways. To quote Wikipedia for a moment, in addition to traditional paintings, drawings, and digital art, fan artists may also create conceptual works, sculptures, video art, live streams, web banners, avatars, graphic designs, web-based animations, photo collages, and posters. Keep in mind, while a lot of it is safe for work, a lot of it is also not safe for work. Remember Rule 34 of the internet? If it exists, there is porn of it, no exceptions. Popular platforms for fan art are DeviantArt for the Western world and Pixiv for Japanese art. Twitter tends to get a ton from both sides, but probably more from Japan. Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, and Reddit are big for finding them for Western works. The various Voodoo sites like Donbudu, Jailbudu, etc. are kind of big for finding Japanese works. Now, fanfiction, sometimes abbreviated to fanfics, are a huge can of worms in and of themselves. While it's popular everywhere, I've always perceived fanfiction, at least Western ones, as more woman-dominated. That's a more woman-dominated form of expression, but what do I know? I don't read fanfiction. If you're in the West, you're probably going to be thinking of sites like fanfiction.net, or Archive of Our Own, or Wattpad, or Tumblr, or specific fandom fanfiction sites. Fandoms like Harry Potter or Star Wars fandoms will have a high amount of fanfics. If you're looking at the Japanese side, you'll probably read more towards doujinshi and doujins. Doujinshi just means self-published print works like manga, novels, and magazines. And doujins are all self-published works, not just print works. So for example, fan-made games, fan-made anime, fan-made merch that are self-published. Toho is very well known for the doujin work for it. So if someone wrote a manga involving Toho characters not officially endorsed by Zune, the creator of the Toho video game franchise, they just made fanfiction of it. Other fan labor is pretty broad, but fan art and fanfiction are a part of this. Fan labor is any creative activity that a fan does that's not endorsed by the original creator. It could be as simple as a review, to cosplaying as a certain character, to collecting literally every piece of merchandise, to displaying it to the public. The internet is filled with fan labor everywhere. Bro, how many times am I gonna have to explain kids' games that were released after my time on this tier? It looks like this is the last one until the next tier, so that's a relief. Five Nights at Freddy's is an indie mascot horror game developed by Scott Cawthon and released in 2014, kickstarting the mascot horror trend. To quote TV tropes on this mascot horror, it's a type of indie horror genre that revolves around subverted kids media, which is ironically often very popular with, if not straight up targeted at, kids. These feature characters that look like they could be mascots of a kids brand. You know, it looked like off-brand Chuck E. Cheese. right? If your kid is playing a horror game and they aren't cultured enough to play the classics, they're most likely playing one of these. As for Five Nights at Freddy's in particular, it was a game in which you're a security guard hired to watch over Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in a stationary area with help from security cameras and limited electricity to close doors to save yourself from being killed. If you do lose, you get jump scared like this. The game was popular and spawned 11 mainline entries so far, not to mention all the spin-offs. Many changed up the formula, but if you're looking for the original experience, 2 and 3 are very much like the original apparently. It got even more popular with Let's Players like PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Jacksepticeye from playing it. This franchise has spawned a lot of other media and even got 2 movies released in theaters called Five Nights at Freddy's and Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Despite the first game releasing in 2014, these movies are not that long ago. The first one was 2023 and the second one was 2025. But I do want to stress, this horror franchise is mostly consumed by children, and so is basically all mascot horror. Facebook. What started as a college networking site grew to the 3rd most visited website in the world as of July 2025. It was the most downloaded app in the US in the 2010s. And it has billions of users. I remember when Facebook was the cool kids site. When I was a teen, everybody had a Facebook account, and if you didn't, you weren't cool. These days, its reputation in the English-speaking world seems to be that site where boomers go to get their news and family members go to reconnect. It's often viewed as outdated. I deactivated mine over a decade ago. It's honestly probably a lot longer than that. But this is not true for the whole world. It is often viewed as the website to use for any kind of discussion for much of the third world. For example, in Indonesia and much of the rest of Southeast Asia, VTuber discussion occurs in Facebook groups. And very often, which sounds patently bizarre for those in the US, but hey, different countries like different places. Facebook also has a pretty popular marketplace, which is kind of like Craigslist, but on Facebook. The company that owns Facebook was pretty notoriously changed to Meta when the company was pushing their metaverse, but that's discussed in a later tier. Facebook is also perhaps the company that has the most controversy about data privacy in the world, and it's not just one incident either. It has a really long history of being grilled on this. One of the more famous instances are when Facebook's CEO and co-founder went to testify where he looked absolutely alien in front of members of Congress. It doesn't help that Congress didn't really seem to understand what the company or the technology or anything at all. So it was just a clown show. I guess one last thing to note about Facebook is that, like some other sites, they're getting flooded with AI slop content, but like so many of the users are boomers, and they don't understand that it's fake, and that the rest are just bots also engaging with the AI slop, making boomers engage with it further. It's a real problem. There's a lot of stuff one could talk about Facebook, but there are other entries about this, and you get the general gist. Discord, released in 2015, originally geared towards gamers, and now more meant for general audience. Discord is a platform that lets you send messages to other users, make voice and video calls, make servers with many different controls, chat rooms called channels, etc. If you pay for Discord Nitro, you get access to even more customization features. Discord is one of the most useful tools you can have, especially if you don't want to have to pay for calling and texting, but even if you do, it's useful for making lobbies for multiplayer games with friends. Now, I actually did make a Discord account. I had one before, but that's for private stuff. I actually made one now for this channel, so if Potted Plant or Disastrous wants to get in touch with me to, or if it's okay for me to contact them, if stuff gets difficult later on, I could use the Discord, but that's just for that type of purpose. Anyway, Discord has 2 different types of controversies that are pretty noticeable about this platform. So first, it's the Discord mods. Discord mods are probably just as reviled as Reddit mods. While Reddit mods are disliked for their anal retentiveness and asshole-ish behavior, Discord mods, while they have that stuff, they tend to have a reputation for grooming minors. That's just kind of what you imagine a Discord mod doing. Now, The second most interesting controversy is when some guy was leaking classified US documents on a Discord server for a YouTuber called wow_Mao. It's a really weird story to where he was literally leaking classified documents for attention in this Discord server. And then it spread all over the world. Imagine leaking classified documents not for any financial gain, not because you're a side with an enemy. No, you did it for clout. That's hilarious. Despite any controversies though, Discord is very widespread and easy to use as a messaging service. Also, I can't move on without scaring at least somebody with the Discord ping. Play it. Instagram. Instagram was released in 2010 and purchased by Facebook in 2012, so right back to Facebook again, huh? Anyway, it allows for people to post images and short-form videos, use their custom filters, and use hashtags, kind of like Twitter. I'm gonna be honest, I don't use Instagram, so my impressions may be skewed, but I tend to think of 4 types of people using Instagram. 1, people who want to take a photo of whatever they're eating at a restaurant. 2, people who call themselves influencers, seem to use this site a lot to push their own brand. 3, people, mostly women, who post provocative photos of themselves to garner clicks. And 4, people, mostly men, who jerk off to the girls in number 3 and, fill the comment section of them. It's one of the bigger websites out there, but to quote Wikipedia, Instagram has also been criticized for negatively affecting teens' mental health, its policy and interface changes, its alleged censorship, and illegal and inappropriate content uploaded by users. Those are just some of the controversies. To be a bit less on the negative side, I imagine such a platform could allow a content creator to share a bit more about their life with their fans, with photos and videos, and so it could be a good resource for that kind of thing. Pinterest. Perhaps the most mainstream website I knew the least about before starting this iceberg, but according to the demographic data of 70% women and 30% men, that actually makes a lot of sense. From how I understand it, it's primarily an image sharing site that people use not as really as social media, but as a way to search for inspirations for things like recipes, decor, DIY projects, and stuff like that. Users are called pinners, and their posts are called pins. They can save pins to their boards, which they can use to organize their pins in different ways. I pretty much only knew Pinterest for being everywhere in Google image searches a long time ago, and often not being of the highest resolution. Apparently, according to this article, Pinterest was gaming Google's algorithm to show their site's images a lot, but then Google changed their search algorithm, which, according to this transcript of Pinterest Q4 2021 earnings call, the company seemingly blamed a 30% decrease in active users on this Google algorithm update. I'm not really sure how to close this entry, so let's just move on. Doge. Actually, this is going to be a good entry to end this video on, so let's do this one, and then I'll close out. This one's a really good one. The term Doge, referring to dogs, is often referred to being first used in a long-running web cartoon series Homestar Runner in 2005 in this video that I'll play here.
What is up, my dog?
Oh, I am not your dog.
Wonderman, you quack me up. Quack me up. That's why you're my D-O-G-E.
Your Doge? What are you talking about? I'm Strong Bad. Rodelman works in regional shipping management resources.
Good one, Wonderman. I mean, good one, my dog.
And in October 2010, a Reddit post used the term in an OP post with a corgi as the image. Look at this fucking Doge. In 2012, a Tumblr blog with an audio file that I'll just let play was posted.
You have encountered a Doge. Options: Pet Doge, Smuggle Doge, Feed Doge. You have chosen Pet Doge. The Doge is pleased.
Here's another 2012 use of it.
You have encountered a doggy. Options: Pet Doggy, Snuggle Doggy, Feed Doggy. You have chosen Pet Doggy. The doggy Yes, please.
Although, I will say, I'm not a fan of how he pronounced it, but it's neither here nor there. Here's yet another similar use in 2012. This Doge meme, which was at the time was just calling dogs Doges and being cute and nice, was starting to spread to other places like 4chan and around the rest of the internet. There was a Doge topic blog in 2012. Okay, so we've explained how the Doge term began to be used originally, but as you may know, this isn't really how Doge is remembered. No, it's typically associated with two things. Shiba Inu dogs, a specific one at that, and with Comic Sans text with a specific style. Let's start with the text first. So the text style has its origins with a different kind of meme. I've literally never heard these things called this, but Know Your Meme calls these inner monologue captioning, and they look like this. In July 2012, a blog named Shiba Confessions on Tumblr was made where they made these kinds of images of Shiba Inus. Ah, such anonymous image. Stuff like that. That's very similar to the monologue captioning that we saw before. A video was posted reading one of these on YouTube.
I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. I've become so tired, so much more aware. I've become and all this, all I want to do is be more like me and less like you.
Eventually, text in these types of images would primarily be two-word sentences with so, such, many, much, and very, like in this image. But what about that very famous image, that Doge you're thinking of? So there was a dog named Kabosu in Japan that was adopted by a kindergarten teacher from an animal shelter in 2008. In this blog that I'll link in the description was where this iconic image was posted, and which was in 2010. It's been used in many of these types of images like this, and is obviously the most popular Doge. Just to illustrate its spread, I'll just list many events that happened in 2013 to show how far this thing had gone. r/Doge was created that used these images. This pretty obnoxious Doge-focused blog was made. 4chan's Shit 4chan Says board, otherwise known as S4S, even made a Doge sticky thread in 2013. YouTube did an Easter egg that changed search results into Comic Sans for this meme. There was even a 4chan raid of r/Murica that spammed Doge, that they didn't seem to mind all that much, actually. Hell, there was even a member of Congress at this time who made one of these and posted it to Twitter. Now, the next big thing associated with the Doge meme was the creation of the meme coin cryptocurrency called Dogecoin. It was literally made a satire on the Bitcoin phenomenon, which we'll talk about later, but somehow became the most successful meme coin. It used Kabosu on the coins, drawn renders of him. This meme coin spread all over and became the talk of the town for a bit, even having its own active subreddit. Very, very rich man Elon Musk, who we'll talk about in another entry, really likes Dogecoin and seems to support it. His very first tweet in support of it made the value of it shoot up to 20%. That's nuts. Like with Wojak, over time the meme started to morph. If I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people found the original meme unfunny, including myself. So while this may be speculation, perhaps these changes are an outlet for it. Ones like these. You know, these silly things right here. Another popular morphing was Cheens. Another one was Swole Doge. Probably the most popular variation is the Swole Doge versus Cheens, which is, one of the many Chad versus Virgin meme formats that the internet uses, but now with Doges. Here are some examples of these. Now, in 2021, when the NFT craze was all the buzz, the owner of Kabosu sold one of the NFTs for about $4 million and donated a lot of it to these charities that I'm showing here. Announced in 2024 and created in 2025, President Donald Trump, with the help of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, created the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, which that's in all caps. Doge in all caps. Yeah, it's Doge.gov. Yes, this is an official U.S. government website. Who said memes in real life had to be separate things? Though, I will note that outside of the name, the department has nothing to do with the meme itself. It is kind of cool, though, for a meme to get that level of recognition. While I think Wojak is ultimately more of a relevant, malleable, and ultimately long-lasting meme, I gotta admit, Doge is most likely the most impactful meme out there, considering, it's the name of an official government department, But what happened to the dog, Kabosu? Well, I have some bad news. In 2022, it was announced that Kabosu was diagnosed with cancer, and I'll show you the Instagram reel of this. And sadly, in 2024, she passed away at the age of 18, and I'll show the Instagram post of that. Tribute posts to her were posted on places like r/Dogelore, with a lot of people showing sadness for such a beloved dog passing. So this one Japanese dog really, really made an effect, and hopefully it had a good life, with her owner. So that's Doge. And with that, that does it for part 1 of Tier 1 of the gigantic internet iceberg. Thank you for sticking around to the end. The first few tiers of this iceberg have a lot of topics that are so broad that there's just a lot I want to say, and before I realize it, that one entry can hit multiple pages. It just happens. As entries get more specific, these will probably be less common, but I can't guarantee that. I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like this video, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified when the next part comes out. Your support will be most appreciated. This is a passion project for me first and foremost, but if other people enjoy it, that'll make it more worth it for me. God bless, and have a great rest of your day.